Will Brandon Montour literally become Money Montour? We will discuss this and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, November 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at MonoMan12, follow show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. You can listen to this. You could subscribe to this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like a chance to win this Florida Panthers hat with the Florida Panthers logo, Amerant Bank on the side, and the lettering as well, saying the official bank of the Florida Panthers, make sure to send in your screenshot of your subscription to the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube channel to me on X at Monument12 or on Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers and on X as well at LO_FLA Panthers as well. Before we get to today's show, we would like to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. So we've had a lot of news with the Florida Panthers as of late, whether it's former Panthers and current ones. And we have a big jam-packed show today, but it is Friday. And to discuss this on this Friday, which means it's Fairbanks Friday, Nick Fairbanks is back here on the show to discuss more about everything from current Panthers and former Panthers as well. And Nick, welcome back to the show once again, my friend.
It's glad to be back. Glad to be back in South Florida from cold Detroit, and just ready to get this weekend started with 2 big games.
Yes, 2 big games indeed. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about the situation with Bally Sports. And me living outside of the region, I haven't had to deal with the local blackouts that ESPN Plus has with any Florida Panthers game. So just seeing the tweets about Florida Panther fans complaining about the new changes with Bally Sports now having when it comes to your TV provider, creating a login for your TV provider and all, and using it instead of that as your login. For me, it wasn't really an issue throughout the last few weeks, as people on X have been complaining about it, and even other content creators from different markets, because the NHL has, I believe it's 12 markets that use Bally Sports. And this is nothing to do with the Goldsteins, the Katie Engelsons, the Randy Mollers of the world. This is the whole company as a whole, Bally Sports. So I don't want people to go after them for this issue. But I really didn't really experience the annoyance of Bally Sports when I wanted to watch the Connor Bedard show on Thursday night when he went into Tampa, where he got 2 goals against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and really, really annoyed me. And I'm just like, okay, now I know what Panther fans were talking about as far as the different changes. We all know what happened as far as the whole Diamond Sports, Bally Sports going into bankruptcy and all that, or being close to filing it, and then having these little changes. And also with the rumors about differences in sports media coverage, at least regional, and a lot of payments being delayed to these sports teams for TV rights deals and all. I'm frustrated with it for sure, and a lot of fans are as well. For you, Nick, who actually lives in South Florida and has dealt with these issues recently, feel free to fire off what your thoughts are on what's going on with Bally Sports.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it kind of describes exactly what's going on. This company owes a couple of organizations or regions money. I can think of the Arizona Coyotes and Arizona being one of them. It just goes to show that they don't have all their ducks in a row, or they have some weird accounting going on. So I wonder if there's something else that's going on that we don't know about yet. Not saying that there is. I'm just saying, how these things usually work out. There might be something going on. So, as far as how I've experienced it, I actually go through the app, and I also go through the Roku app, and there's really no difference. You log in with your username, you pay your subscription fee, things like that, and it doesn't matter. It wasn't working. Like, I would try to go through my phone, try to go through my tablet, I try to go through the TV, does not work at all. And it didn't work for about a week. I want to say like 5 days. And the response is like, hey, we're still working on it. We're still trying to figure it out, which, okay, either you don't have enough manpower to figure out what's going on, or two, you guys don't know what you're doing. And the response from that was, hey, since you guys are down a week, we're going to credit everybody a week. That's poor customer service. That's poor. That you're not really taking responsibility or really thinking about your customers at that point. I mean, um, you know, Panthers fans may have lost out on 2 or 3 games. I can't imagine how many NBA games were lost, and then other sports things that people wanted to watch. I don't think a week really covers it, and they should be able to come up with at least maybe a month. It's $20, and if they can't afford that, then I don't think they should be in the business anymore. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and you spoke about Arizona, how the not only the Coyotes but the whole region of Arizona, Phoenix Suns and the Arizona Diamondbacks, they have everything on regional channels and all, and that might be the next step. I mean, Steve Goldstein already works for CBS 4, so maybe they put CBS 4 in the future as far as playing Panther games every single night. So maybe that's the future of it, or maybe NBC 6 with it being so close to the arena, maybe like 15 minutes with the station being in Miramar as well. So maybe that's a avenue that the South Florida could use to air games as well for the Florida Panthers. And we share your frustration, Panther fans, and I wanted to speak on behalf of the Panther fans as well, who are going through this frustration as well. So that's enough of the Bally Sports conversation there, but I also wanted to touch on a former Panther in Jonathan Huberdeau, who the other night on Tuesday against the Nashville Predators, he was benched for the entirety of the third period, and the Calgary Flames managed to come back. We discussed mostly about the culture there in Calgary with Daryl Sutter. People didn't get along with them. Now there's a new GM, new head coach, Ryan Hutzka there. Craig Conroy's the GM there, and even then, the production hasn't increased. I mean, when you lose Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau in one being a free agent, one being an RFA, you did get something back from Matthew Tkachuk. That's a lot of goal scoring that you have to make up for, and getting older guys in. Jonathan Huberdeau, who's not a score first forward, and Nazem Kadri as well, who's a little bit on the older side, has flipped, who's now been on a few teams already in his career. And then we saw a lot of Panther fans on the socials discussing about, oh, bring back Jonathan Huberdeau, and all. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's a very low percentage chance. There's a no move clause in the first 6 years of his deal, so Calgary has to make this work. But let's play a little bit of a hypothetical here, just because for content creating reasons too. Why not? What would today's version of Jonathan Huberdeau look like with the Florida Panthers, knowing that there's been a lot of turnover since the President's Trophy winning season, a coaching change as well, and what Jonathan Huberdeau was used to with run and gun versus this style of play for the Florida Panthers?
I don't know how he would fit in. I mean, especially with how he's playing today, he hasn't really changed his game too much. I don't know if it's because of stubbornness, or it's just that he doesn't know how to play that style, or just it's not good for him. And I know the Panthers are struggling to score goals right now, but the goals will come. As Paul Maurice has said. But you have to look at how the team is now constructed, and how they are so relentless on the forecheck. how heavy they have to play at times, why they have bigger defensemen now. I really don't see him having a place on here, maybe besides Barkov, um, just to help with playmaking abilities. But other than that, I don't see him fitting on the second line at all. I don't see him fitting on the third line. And I don't see him fitting on the fourth line at all. The style that the Florida Panthers are playing is somewhat similar to what Calgary plays as far as, in a way, they want to play heavy. They want to play a tougher game. Maybe not so much on Calgary's side of forward checking because they don't at all. They let the play come to them. But at the same time, people got to adapt. And, it seems like Barkov's adapted. Tkachuk has adapted to his new surroundings, things like that. And it seems like the only person that hasn't adapted in this situation is Huberdeau. And I hate to say that because he is one of my favorite players and he is one of my favorite cats, but, it's just not looking good right now.
Yeah, it's 6 points in 12 games and a minus 12 as his plus minus as well. It doesn't really look good for Jonathan Huberdeau. And you think about with the style of play changing and all. And yeah, could there be a flipped switch if he were to ever come back to Sunrise, Florida, to play with a buddy that he knows in Alexander Barkov? Sure, but what is I wonder sometimes what is it between the ears that's holding him back as well when it comes to the lack of production, the lack of caring, but also that's also the thought process of Bill Zito. He didn't believe that you could carry a team through him as
Mm-hmm.
well right before that trade. And we saw it with the issues in the postseason as well. It's like, okay, this is a guy that doesn't get to the blue paint as often as we would have liked him to see during his time with the Florida Panthers. That's why you get someone who gives you the net front presence that the Panthers didn't really have, because at the time the biggest net front presence before when that season ended were Patrick Hornquist and Sam Reinhart. You needed
Mm-hmm.
to add that extra boost, and that's how you throw goalies off, get your second chance opportunities as well. As great as the centering feeds are, as far as creating opportunities for guys, you need more of that of guys who could get on the doorstep as well for opposing goalies to be thrown off.
So one thing I do want to add there, and you make a great point, is that if he were to come back, would he be rejuvenated? I don't know.
I don't know neither.
I would agree that he probably would have a little bit more pep in his step, but you can't think that he would be 100%. I happen to think that maybe the bridge was burned mostly, and he's still feeling a certain type of way, and he feels hurt. I mean, it's understandable. But you got to move on. You got to really find another way to be successful. Um, the other thing too is he's been benched before. He was benched here in Florida for either not playing that well, not forechecking, not back checking, or just not being able to play. Overall a great game. I know Bob Bugner did it a couple times actually, and he seemed to have gotten the message. But to say that he's never been benched or he's never been in this position before. Yeah, but at the same time, this isn't the first time he's been called out for his play. Um, is it the Canadian media? I can probably give credit to that, yeah. But also, I just don't think he's happy. I don't think he wants to be there, to be honest. I mean, yeah, he signed his contract, he got his money. It's not really how it was supposed to work out for him, unfortunately, of what he thought, and I don't think he really wants to be there.
Yeah, it doesn't look that way, and it's no matter what, we are definitely cheering for him. But as
Yep.
far as what this version of Jonathan Huberdeau would be on the Panthers, don't know if it will just turn around just like that, just because he had 115 points just a few seasons ago. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where there are more rumors on possible extensions for a current Panther on the roster. We are going to discuss this and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Parkview Advance. And as a business owner, you realize there are times when receivables might fall behind, but that doesn't mean you need to fall behind on your vendor payments, payroll, or rent. For more than 25 years, Parkview Advance has helped business secure working capital from $5,000 to $1.5 million. Parkview Advance can approve your working capital in as little as 24 hours. It's a much easier process than you might imagine. We invite the many entrepreneurs that are locked on NHL fans to learn more about by calling us at 203-675-0071 or go to parkviewadvance.com. If your business needs working capital, call Parkview Advance today. Parkview Advance, helping business owners with their working capital. Go to parkviewadvance.com. And today's episode is also brought to you by Collective. And if you run a solo business, you're an army of one. You still need a CPA, bookkeeper, separate payroll solution, and more. Let Collective take care of the paperwork while you take care of business. They say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. But as a freelancer, there's always the dreaded paperwork that comes with it. With Collective, you can focus on your business of one while letting them focus on your paperwork. Collective is the number one financial solution for freelancers, contractors, and self employed entrepreneurs that lets you focus on your passion, not your paperwork. Collective knows that your business of one makes over 80K a year, and you'll find the most value from their services. Join the thousands of solopreneurs who have saved an average of 10K per year on taxes with their structure. Right now, Collective is offering 1 month free and no onboarding fee when you go to collective.com/lockedonAHL and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. That's a $550 value for free when you go to collective.com/lockedonAHL and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. That's collective.com/lockedonAHL. And once again, tell them Locked On NHL sent you. Segment number 2 here on this Friday, November 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday, a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. So, Nick, there is the latest. We have the latest on what's going on with as far as extensions for some players on the Florida Panthers. And we discussed a few weeks ago about extensions of Brandon Montour and Gus Forsling. That was a Kevin Weeks report, And then now we have another update. This is from David Pagnotta of NHL Network and the Fourth Period. And this is the quote. Panthers GM Bill Zito and Montour's camp are zeroing in on a new deal that could fall in the neighborhood of $7 million per season over 7 or 8 years. What assists the Panthers on the AAV is Florida's status as a no-income tax state, close quote. So this contract for Brandon Montour would take him to his age 37 season. He does turn 30 on April 11th of 2024. So we know what the age will look like as far as the tail end of it. And as far as how he's thrived under Paul Maurice as well, we discussed the most points in a single season as well. And then we spoke over the summer. You can only possibly keep one, Montour or Forsling. Looks like they're going to try to keep both, and that could come at the expense of losing Sam Reinhart. That might be out of the Florida Panthers' price range as well. But you also think about how you're going to have to value some extensions as well. Anton Lundell is going to be up for one as an RFA, maybe like 2.5, 3 million. Josh Mahura is also an RFA as well. You could possibly get him for cheap extended. Even Steven Lorentz as well, who's been a valuable piece. So once that extension is done for the Panthers and Brandon Montour, you still have a little bit of you only have so much lemon to squeeze with a whole bunch of expiring contracts. But not only do I want to ask you how you're feeling about a possible Montour extension, but another question with the cap not rising a lot for the Panthers is the 2024-25 season. Could that possibly be the real gap year for the Florida Panthers? Because we spoke about last year being that with the dead cap of Keith Yandel, but now with a whole bunch of expiring contracts and having to get the value for the roster, do you think next year will be the real gap year for the Panthers?
So number one, I'm very happy to hear that the deal is close with Money Montour, which yes, he will be officially having that name. We'll give credit to Kirby Lupul on that one.
Yes.
He No, he deserves it, especially with his play and how he's been able to blossom here in South Florida. He deserves the contract. I hope it's. I'm stuck between 7 and 8 years just because the age he's going to be by the time the contract is over. But again, he he plays such a game that I think he would be okay into age 37. He can play physical if he wants to, but he's more of a skating type offensive defenseman. Can work the power play, everything like that. And I hope it gets done sooner than later. But I can also see a timeline where they want to see where he's at when he comes back. What's he look like after his injuries, things like that. Is he going to take a little bit of time to get reacclimated, which I hope it does, because I don't want him rushing in and then re-injuring himself, but or causing another injury. But at the same time, I this is going to get done. There's no question. Now the other questions that we have to ask are who else is going to be signed after that? Are they going to extend Gus Forsling, which it sounds like they have an interest in doing? What's going on with Sam Reinhart? They haven't started negotiations with his camp yet, which can be worrisome. But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, it really takes two to tango. It depends on if Reinhardt's camp really wants to start talking, or if they're like, "Hey, you're on a hot streak right now. Just let's ride this out, and then we can start negotiations." And then you have Anton Lundell that's going to need a contract extension. Steven Lorentz, who actually is looking pretty good on the third and fourth line for Florida, and really, having a good presence there. And then the question you asked, is 24, 25 the real gap year? With Bill Zito, has there ever been a gap year?
It
I
could,
mean, like
if Brad Marchand scored on at the end of Game 5, we'd have a different conversation.
we would. So I mean, that's the thing, is like certain things had to happen. I mean, like they went on a run after the trade deadline because he said he believed in this team, and look what they did. That the last year was supposed to be a gap year, and yet they made the playoffs. They
Mm-hmm.
went to the Cup final. This year, we're like, okay, we're getting some new players. And our top two defensemen are injured, so maybe this might be a little rough. We're in a playoff spot without him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Zito's going to allow that to happen. I think he's going to find the right pieces. I think he's going to find the right personnel to make sure that the team is always either treading water or gives them a chance to actually succeed. So, gap year, I don't think is in his vocabulary.
I like it. It's implementing a little bit of what another South Florida executive does in Pat Riley, as far as we're going to remain competitive. And as you get closer to when as years go, you get one step closer to getting close to that 2026
Yep.
first round pick. If you need to make a trade to bring someone in, it's going to be hard to squeeze within the lineup as well. But definitely Bill Zito has always found a way, and getting value signings as well for guys
Mm-hmm.
who would make a league minimum as well for the Florida Panthers, because this is once again a team that has a lot of people from the outside watching them, and people who want to get bought into just a winning situation. And that is really what's helping. And people are watching like you said, people are watching what the Panthers are doing without three major key pieces in not Forsling, Ekblad, Montour, and Bennett right now.
Yep.
So it's speaking volumes to the stability of the franchise, and that is very encouraging to see, and all. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to preview tonight's matchup between the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes from Amerant Bank Arena, and we are going to discuss more of the series lately as well, and what's going on between the pipes as well for the Carolina Hurricanes. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. And we spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up on wins and losses, who starts, who sits. I'm thankful for that connection that we have. And today, I want our chat to be a little bit more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply of ED medication. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You are covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, Revadio prescription, and this is possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at Jace Medical to receive your 12-month supply of your daily medication. Remember to use that promo code Locked On at checkout to get a discount as well. A verified customer said this about Jace: "I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone." So don't get caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to take care of themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. Jace handles everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. So make sure to go to jacemedical.com and use that promo code Locked On at checkout. Once again, jacemedical.com and use that promo code Locked On to get $20 off your purchase. That's JASE medical.com. Third and final segment here on this Friday, November 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday edition of the show, a Fairbanks Friday edition, actually. And Nick, with the Florida Panthers versus Carolina Hurricanes from Amerant Bank Arena, the first matchup since Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Final, where Matthew Tkachuk scored with 4.3 seconds left on the power play. That slide towards the penalty box, Sam Reinhart following him, yelling, and then the review to verify the goal for as they were reviewing goalie interference. Season series for the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. Lost the season series as far as the regular season, but they did win the most important one, which was that playoff series, which Rodman Moore said we didn't get swept as well. But but it's funny because in the COVID year, the 2021 season, the Panthers lost 6 of 8 against Carolina, and the only 2 wins came in overtime. But ever since that last matchup in the 2021 regular season, and all the way to President's Trophy, and even the first matchup last year where the Panthers were if you remember, based on timeline, there's a hurricane coming through South Florida, missed South Florida, and then the Florida Panthers shut out the Carolina Hurricanes. In that span, they had a 5-game winning streak against the Carolina Hurricanes in between three seasons as well. So when I looked that up, I'm like, wow, incredible. And actually one of them was the game winner by Aaron Ekblad 16 seconds into overtime during what was supposed to be the Olympic break, which Sam Reinhart broke the record as far as fastest overtime goal by 1 second just a few days ago. So wanted to look that up as far as thinking, wait, how many seconds did Aaron Ekblad score into that overtime? One second difference there. And let's also look into this matchup for these two teams. As far as splits, the Carolina Hurricanes are undefeated at home. All of their losses have come on the road. They've had a really road-heavy schedule. They have opening night at home, go to the West Coast, come back home for practice, go to Tampa Bay for one where they get shut out as well. But despite giving up a lot of goals in the beginning of the season, they have not given up 3 or more goals since October 24th. So even though the average numbers as far as goals against being at 3.38, 22nd in the league, PK percentage being at 76%, 20th in the league, they in the last couple of weeks have toned it down as far as goals against. So the average numbers might not speak for themselves. And this is without currently their Freddie Anderson, who's going through blood clots as well. South Florida sports fans know about players and blood clots due to Chris Bosh with the Miami Heat back almost 10 years ago. Crazy to think. But also players who are starting to step up. And it's not even the top end superstars. Just Barry Kotkaniemi, who the Montreal Canadiens, you could have argued that they rushed his development. Marty Necas is stepping up 11 points in 13 games. Seth Jarvis and Andrei Svechnikov is back for the Carolina Hurricanes off of his ACL injury. And you know, when you're bringing also new players into the mix, a fourth line guy in Michael Bunting, who is a pain to play against, and even Dmitry Orlov, I know there's a lot of money spent on a third pair defenseman right now, which looking back at it, if the Florida Panthers were paying that for a third pair, we wouldn't be probably too pleased about that. So maybe missing out on Orlov wasn't the worst thing in the world for the Panthers. Not only is Anderson out, but Brett Pesce is also out on IR as well. So don't let the average numbers fool you, because what they've done defensively since the 24th, they're trending towards that team that is the favorite going into the season as to represent the Eastern Conference in the Stanley Cup final. What says to you about this matchup tonight for the Panthers against the Hurricanes?
So I have one question for you. Who was the one that supposedly caused that goaltender interference that they reviewed in Game 4?
It was Brett Pesce, I believe, or it wasn't Jacob Slavin. He was out. He got out within the first few minutes as well. It
I'm
was
talking
either
about on
Brett
the.
Pesce or Brady Shea.
I'm talking about the Tkachuk goal in Game 4.
In Game 4, I believe it was Brett Pesce that bumped into Freddie Anderson, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Well, they were arguing that Sam Bennett's stick was in between, which did not allow Freddie Anderson to move over. And the reason why I bring that up is because it was just reported by Colby Guy that Bennett is in a full contact jersey during practice today. So
Beautiful.
just give you guys a little bit of preview of what's going on tonight. I don't know what to trust. They said it was going to be a week-to-week thing, and that fact is he's already in a contact jersey. We'll see what happens. But with Carolina, yeah, they didn't start the season very well, and now that they're starting to deal with, one of their top defensemen on IR, and now they have their top goaltender on IR. We'll see what they can do and what they can piece together. As you said, you really can't, use their stats against them because they've really kind of turned themselves around over the last couple of weeks. But Florida's kind of done the same thing. They didn't start the season off too well. But they're number one in defense in a lot of metrics right now, which has held them into games, and it's kind of held their offense back, which, listen, if they can win these games that way, nothing's going to stop them going forward. It'll be interesting to see how Carolina comes out, because I'm pretty sure they're going to be pretty mad, and they're going to want to really show that they didn't get swept. I'm sorry, Rod, you still got swept. There's 4 L's next to your name and no wins. Just get over it. But we'll see what happens. Let's see what Svechnikov can bring to the table. I'm interested to see how he's going to change the game. And let's see what Antti Ranta's got. He's going to be, coming in as the number one goaltender now. And I know that they have another goaltender that, showed up last season that played pretty well. I forget his name, but
Fedor Kochetkov.
Yeah, Kochetkov. Let's see what he can bring to the table as well. So I think Carolina will still be, considered one of the favorites to come out of the East, but they still got to prove it first. Their history is against them. Last 3 Eastern Conference Finals they've been swept.
Since 09.
So it seems like they haven't really shown up when it matters most, or to get them over the hump and everything. So let's see what they're going to do. They have a couple of those players on IR. Let's see how much it opens up cap-wise, and see if they can bring somebody else in.
Yeah, Antti Ranta and Fedor Kochetkov, their save percentage isn't the best. Antti Ranta, 876, 2.83 goals against average, which means even the little bit of shots that they are giving up, they're going into the net. I mean, the Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes, it's funny because last year during the playoffs, their Corsi 4 was under 50%, so they were getting the goals in as far as quality, not quantity. But as far as protecting the puck and having it in their own end, Carolina is currently first in the NHL in Corsi 4, while Florida is 8th. So both have the puck on their offensive end. So something to watch out tonight with the eye test, as far as how much time is spent more, who's spending more time on the other end as far as that. So that's going to be an important thing eye test wise as far as that. Kochetkov is 836 and 4.33. Has bounced in and out from the AHL and NHL. And a reminder, Carolina does not have an affiliate this year, so a lot of their minor league guys are going to different organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Kochetkov was with the Syracuse Crunch, the Tampa Bay Lightning affiliate as well. So a little bit of maybe thrown off whenever you're not knowing where you're going. But Kochetkov is going to be with the big boy squad for a little while until everything is figured out with Freddie Anderson as well. And we wish Freddie Anderson definitely the best while going through this. Definitely we are rooting for him as well, and all. But hopefully it comes out with a win and be the first 3-game winning streak of the season for the Florida Panthers, as they're hoping to go 8-4-1 in this young season through 13 games. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Actually, before we sign off, Uvis Balinskis is back in for Mike Riley. That's what it looks like, and Sergei Bobrovsky is the starter for the Florida Panthers. So those are your lineup changes. Sam Bennett is not participating in rushes, but once again, a good sign for the Florida Panthers. But Nick, thank you once again for joining me on the show, and tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Armando, thank you for having me on again. I will say whoever has the more effective forecheck tonight in the game will win this game, because both teams are adamant about it. And fans, you guys can follow me on the X at Prudentious0, and I look forward to speaking with you guys next week.
Awesome. Next week will be a Fairbanks Friday, Cats After Dark edition, as the Florida Panthers will be paying a visit to the Los Angeles Kings from the crypt. So, so Nick, thank you so much, and I will see you next week, my friend.
See you next week.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Steer Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nick Fairbanks, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.